Hello you, it's me. Today we're going to talk about The Forever Sea by Joshua Phillip Johnson. I picked this up thinking it was going to be a standalone, but it's actually the first in the series, so I'm really psyched to see where the story goes after this book. This is such a bonkers, fantastic world build. I'm going to do plot, review, stuff I liked, stuff I wasn't too keen on, but it is all going to be marked on the time bar underneath, so make sure you click around if you want. This novel is set in a world where islands and continents exist as the tips of these rocky mountains in a sea of miles deep vegetation. Grasses, flowers, reefs of iron-hard thorns, vines and unbelievably immense trees. Unlike the animals, some hunted by the humans, some these horrific predators that stalk the grasses, humans don't have the ability to move freely through the grass, instead falling through it to the almost fabled solid ground underneath, miles below. To get around on the Forever Sea, these magically constructed ships are used and kept afloat by a hearthfire keeper, who tend a flame aboard the ship, arranging inside the fire sculptures and patterns made from the bones of dead ship captains, which grants the vessel magical lift and speed to harvest dew, harvest plants, to sail and to outrun pirates. We follow Kindred Greyreach, who is a hearthfire keeper of the Errant, who receives the news that her grandmother, a legendary ship's captain called the Marchese, has sailed into rough, uncharted green, put her crew at risk, and willingly stepped over the side of her boat. She leaves Kindred a note suggesting that it wasn't an act of suicide, but rather that she's gone down into the depths of the Forever Sea in search of something. And with familiar words, she challenges her granddaughter to come and find her, dragging her into water wars, politics, pirate raids, a mythical floating city, as she learns the secrets of the sea and the Hearthfire's magic. I love this world build so much. This is everything I've been looking for in an adult fantasy since I read The Edge Chronicles by Paul Stewart and Chris Riddell as a kid. This has the exact same vibe. There's a couple of other similarities I'll touch on in a sec. But yeah, if you loved that as a kid, chances are you're going to love this as a grown-up. There's a lot about the world build that feels almost Ghibli. I was drawing a lot of comparisons between this and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Some really similar themes. Like The Edge Chronicles, this does have a very and then format to it, with every chapter being sort of a problem and a resolution within that chapter and not much carrying over from one chapter to the next. There's other stuff happening in the background, there is a continuous storyline, but that format did make it feel very episodic. I've seen this marketed as eco-punk. I think it actually says that on the back of my copy, eco-punk, somewhere. But for me, any word with punk on the end kind of evokes feelings of sci-fi, and this is definitely fantasy, so eco-punk is not how I would have chosen to market this one. I think it's slightly misleading. It does share a lot of themes with eco-punk, though. There's a big environmental message in it about finding balance and harmony with the world you live in, about harvesting it, utilizing the nature that's around you without overstepping the line into exploitation. And this is also something that bleeds over into the magic system. The relationship between the humans and the endless prairie is reflected in the relationship between the Hearthfire Keeper and the Hearthfire. Slotting yourself into a system and gently bending it around you is better than trying to hack out a place for yourself to live. The greatest Hearthfire Keepers in the story are the ones that understand the fire, and the greatest captains, the ones who understand the sea. I think there are a lot of other messages in this book. With Kindred being a very intuitive magic user, one who refuses to learn a strict, rigid system of magic, I think this book asks the question, how useful is tradition? If you find a new, better way to do things, you kind of have a responsibility to shake up a stale and stagnant system. With this aspect of Kindred, with her magic, there's also this message of coming to accept who you are, despite what others may assume about you. With her being torn between the Arcadians and the residents of the pirate city, there are big parts of this that feel almost like a coming-of-age story, where you learn what's important to you, which way your moral compass swings, and balancing that with the knowledge that your actions will have consequences on the lives of other people. I've seen this called a found family story, but I would disagree. I don't think it's a found family story because that implies finding people who accept you for who you are. Kindred has the same crew start to finish, but really reveals parts of herself that she's kept hidden, parts of her personality, and the crew come to accept that of her, about her. Having said at the start, I thought this was a standalone, I will say that people shouldn't go into this expecting everything to be wrapped up by the end. There's still a lot left unresolved. And this book very much feels like it's paving the way for a lot of big things to happen in the future. The characters introduced really feel like they'll be back, and it feels like we've only really got a sniff of how the world all clicks together. Stuff I liked. From this point, it's going to be spoilery stuff, so if you don't want that in your ear holes, get out of here. I thought the narrative was so interesting because we're given these two very different storytelling voices. Kindred and a mysterious storyteller who's moving between these pockets of civilization in a dark, shadowy land, talking about Kindred as if she's something that happened in the distant past. It's weird how you can be given two fantasy worlds and be convinced to accept one as baseline while asking questions about the other one that you wouldn't ask of the first one, like how the hell did we get here? Is it past and present? Is it geographical separation? Is there something magic going on? Do these characters even really know each other? I was constantly looking for things to connect the two settings, and I think that's really great storytelling. I like that it was a mostly female cast. I think when you have sort of nautical stories, historically that has always been very man-based. And since we've set this seafaring novel in a completely fantasy location, you're not really bound by those gender restrictions. So we're able to kind of shake up that genre, which is very cool. There is a romance arc in this book. There were a few things I liked about it. I liked that it was very much a back burner thing and it wasn't part of the main story. It's very slow, very casual, very hesitant. But it's these two characters who are very clearly into each other from page one. And it's about building mutual respect and taking the next step in a relationship that ends up feeling very natural. So if you like enemies to lovers or chance meetings with sexy strangers, you might not really be into the romance arc in this book, but it's very wholesome. And speaking of character development, I thought it was so great to see a villain arc unfold within a book. Lots in fantasy, I think, you're presented with a villain and then retrospectively find out who they are, why they're doing, what their motivation is, usually through flashbacks or monologues or bits of history you pick up along the way. But in this one, the things that happen to a person to make them a villain are horrible things, and you understand as they're happening why they have the outcome they do on this person's personality. You can understand why they go a bit mad, and it doesn't shy away from telling you that this is the main character's fault. Kindred is 100% responsible, even if accidentally, even if unintentionally, for the person who's trying to smash her into the dirt. Stuff I wasn't too keen on. The absolute best part of this book was the world build. There was so much, it was so dense, and I just wanted to unpack everything. But there were two things that stood in the way for me. The first was that this book was so fast-paced, I wanted it to slow down a bit so I could get a good look at everything. The second was that while the world build was the best part of this book, the storyline was only okay. I was a bit bored. I felt like the main character really only moved the story along by ignoring people and being impulsive. And the focus on her doing that kind of made the insanely cool world build take a bit of a backseat, which is a shame. A lot of fantasy gets criticised for being overly flowery and overly descriptive, but with this I really wanted more of that. The characters here were a bit flat, but the thing that ticked me off most was the fact that every other page seemed to be a flashback. I think there were probably more elegant ways to explore Kindred's history, Kindred's relationship with her grandmother. Flashbacks are okay, I don't mind them, but there were so many. I think this book probably could have been a lot shorter with a lot of waffle cut out. I wanted to see more of the grim, dark implications of how the magic system works. But I'm hoping that is expanded in the books to come. I do have to keep reminding myself, this is book one. I appreciate that. I get it. I'm going to give this one a low 4 stars. It just scrapes into 4 stars because I feel like I give a lot of points for originality. This did feel very original. It nearly got a 3. Almost. So thanks for watching my review on this one. Don't forget to follow me on Goodreads and Twitter. They're linked down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more single book reviews. Press the button. If you like sci-fi, don't forget to join our Interstellar Book Club, also linked down below, and I'll see you soon for the next one. Bye.